Welcome everyone to Biodesign Now, the podcast where we explore innovation at the intersection of design, biology, art, and technology. Hosted by myself, biodesigner Akir Hall, and artist and biodesigner Kirsten Tingle. In our latest episode, we're joined by Joslin Faith Kehdy, a changemaker, environmentalist, and systems thinker living off-grid in the mountains of Biskinta, Lebanon. She's the founder and director of Recycle Lebanon, an NGO founded to catalyze system change through circular economy. And in this episode, we're particularly excited to dive into her journey launching Terrapods in 2023, which is a regenerative agroecology farm, a biodesign makerspace, and arts residency. So we're really looking forward to share her insights into taking action, into social impact, and into building alternative futures. So thank you for joining us today, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Okay, wonderful. Let's dive into the warm-up questions.
So our first little sort of quick fire question for you is what in nature is inspiring you right now?
Before I met slime mold, I think I would have maybe addressed the bees, but the quiet intelligence of slime mold is very new to me, and it's become a metaphor of how we might organize ourselves. So moving beyond a hierarchy, but towards like these networks of adaptability and shared wisdom. So like a distributed intelligence and co-creation and cooperation. And I've just recently learned about slime mold because Alve, who's our biomaterial designer in residency here, making all of this possible, brought some with him. And it's just a fascinating organism I'm learning about, and it really challenges the way we think as in this, like intelligence and as decision making. So it's without a brain, and it can navigate these quite complex environments and find the shortest paths and solve problems in a way. So it it kind of like reflects to me a simplest life path, and the resilience.
Yeah, that's about as far as I've got with slime mold as well. But I think even there, it's it's so wonderful to see it kind of find its most efficient way through all the oats and refine its
Mm.
path. And I think that it's like it does make everybody rethink what intelligence means. So I think that's like a wonderful gift that slime mold has given us to think about intelligence outside of human intelligence.
Yeah, we had a workshop, residents here last week, and we'd asked if anyone had seen slime mold here in Lebanon, and two had. So that was really kind of exciting because I think my next step is to try to really observe where I am when I'm in nature, in the wild, and see if I can find it.
You'll have to let us know and keep us updated.
Um, okay, next little quick fire question. What does biodesign mean to you personally?
Yeah. So for me, it's really a way to break free from the system. So it is a tool to help me to break free from the system, but it's also um, outside of just a tool, designing with life. So it's a way to enhance and not necessarily use these extractive models. Um, and another way I really feel currently with biodesign, it's a design for impermanence, and it invites us to see the decay as part of the cycle. So of course I don't want to design for something that is going to harm, but maybe a way to embrace the impermanence of what some biomaterials offer and embrace that.
Oh, that's a really nice definition. I like this idea that biodesign um, isn't inherently biodesign if it's operating within the current extractive system we have. And that to actually do it properly, you first have to either create a new system or push back and break the current system.
It's a process. And so I think the third thing that I'd say then about biodesign to me personally is accessibility. So in my radical path, it's always about, how can we take action instead of just surf on a wave of a trend. And I really see that biodesign is something that can be done on an individual and micro level, but we can bridge the gaps in, this global village of what is biodesign today to find a future of it on large scale. But there's no guilt in the micro scale of it. It does make a difference because it is cultivating this alternative that we're imagining. So it kind of surpasses the romanticism for me by seeing it in action, even if it's on a small scale. It's enough. It's not forever enough, but it's a start, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's so easy in this sort of like moment of like climate crisis, poly crisis to feel like kind of stuck. And I often think as well that biodesign is it's this really nice way to just be in motion. You can
Mm.
always be doing some kind of a biodesign practice.
And it has so many tentacles. So you just kind of, that becomes your world of creation, from all of the different fungi and plants. And you're using the plant to cultivate, to grow it and create something with it, but then you're also using the plant to create a natural dye for it. So you're looking at the whole process of where we were in the original cradle or circular economy days. It just feels like it's given me something tangible.
Yeah, and I think the sentiment about not get oh sorry. Yeah, I think the sentiment about the small impacts that you can make is really important because as you said, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, but you never know, how the small changes you make will snowball, right? And connect to work that
Mm-hmm.
other people are doing as well and grow from there.
I feel like I could talk about like all these biodesign definitions forever. But next quick fire question is what does environmental justice mean to you personally?
Oh, I didn't answer that question in my notes because I'm so angry with this notion of environmental justice. And, I think the Slow Factory has really been able to communicate it really well, Celine, because there's no climate justice without social justice. And it's just all so connected. And when I spoke on the Nate Hagen's podcast, he asked a question at the end, which was, what would you change if you had this magic wand? And I said, free Palestine. And that was years before October 7th. And that had been cut out. And so if you're going to ask me about environmental justice today, but we're going to take out Palestine and we're going to take out everything that we're witnessing in the world, just go back to sleep because we've reached boundaries of no return, and nothing is good enough now unless we completely change the systems that we're living in. There can't be any gray lines anymore. So what is my environmental justice? It's radical justice for all, human and non-human. And it's through action, not talk, not lobbying.
Yeah, I don't think there's, you couldn't have put it any better, honestly. And I think there is that quote that says that environmentalism without politics and without social action is just gardening. As wonderful as gardening is, we have new systems to build.
Yeah, I guess it's gardening in a non-indigenous way. So it's gardening with all your
It's like turfing the front lawn with no
Yeah.
space for pollinators.
yeah.
What is your biggest pet peeve in mainstream environmentalism?
Okay, so I couldn't choose one, so I've narrowed it down to my two. that are really three. But it's this very consumer focused solution, which I know is part of a solution I'm working towards, but it's like this overemphasis on individual responsibility over the corporate, governmental, or structural accountability. So this is kind of like the one and the two is it's the conglomerate's role to shift this towards a livable planet. And then my other pet peeve is just, especially because where we live, crisis fatigue. And so it's a lot of fear based messaging or, very raising awareness kind of advocacy and campaigning and messaging without a clear invitation of like what is a collective action or a systemic engagement. So we know the problem, we're living in the problem, we are your blueprint of problems. I don't need that drilled into me anymore. I want to know what are the actions we can take. And I don't want the responsibility is on me in a lab growing it with students. I want that the conglomerates, the lobbies, the policymakers, and the governments are responsible and taking an action. But because we live where we live, we know that that doesn't happen. We don't walk around with rose tinted shades on. So then it does become our responsibility. That really pisses me off.
As it should. Yeah. I mean, the driving bottom up change because the top down structures are not taking responsibility at all.
Yeah. And I do believe in the bottom down approach, but it has to be in such a systemic way to shift policy. And I feel that when these movements such as ours and others get there, we really are blocked. And you see it in so many things around us. So it's frustrating. Yeah. It's disheartening. And at our age, we're getting tired. And so we need to know that the new generation is really able to radically fight forward without the tension and aggression of having to fight for it, but by redesigning total parallel systems that just break what's broken.
Yeah, I feel like there is this real like just like pushing a boulder up a hill effort to trying to create change. And it's
Yeah.
interesting to see some like routes to changing things, which is like, okay, like we're too tired to keep kind of brute forcing this. Like, can we build around? Can we get creative? Can we like sort of change the rule set completely so that we win in this situation, or we build something that like lives alongside and like concurrently?
Yeah, and I think you also raised a really important point. I think it was crisis fatigue that you said, and the kind of paralysis that uh, comes along with that kind of messaging and being exposed to it all the time. And I think that that is, you know, for me at least, I think that's one of the privileges of being in a biodesign space is you're constantly seeing people doing to change things, which was not the kind of environmentalism that I grew up being exposed to. Right, it was more the kind of the you know the advocate the kind of the doom advocacy that is valid and it's telling the complete truth, but that's humans need more than that to function and to shift things
Mm-hmm.
because that also affects our your nervous system and your
Yeah.
community and your social bonds, right? But we need to flip that, right, and make that useful, knowing how things are. But yeah, I think that your philosophy of direct action is the antidote to that, and we kind of want to understand that a bit deeper and where that came from. And so I kind of want to know a bit about what was your relationship with nature like, growing up in Biskinta where you are now.
Yes. So I am definitely of the generation where we grew up in, this great outdoors, as they say, as our playground. So my childhood was climbing trees, hands in the soil, hide and seek through the pine forest, crawling through caves, listening to my grandfather's tales of his forefathers wrestling with a bear with his bare hands. And I think he was also responsible for the extinction of that bear. And having picnics in the gardens under trees and, in the shade, or swimming on the rooftops in our village house under the grapevine terraces. And all of this was in between a civil war. So it was between our house and us running downstairs into our bomb shelter, where a militia was directly targeting my father for supplying the army with dairy and produce and going to a village French school and normalizing life between wartime and play. So, really neurotic and catastrophic, and a cycle that is continuing to repeat itself from my parents and their parents' generation to ours and their, you know, the children today. So it's you grow up in Lebanon watching your nature get bombed and watching everything inside that nature be blitzed to ashes. And you grow up with a passion for living, knowing that in one air raid or, whatever new technology is going to be, you're blitzed. Your boundaries been changed. You've been occupied, and your nature kind of becomes your way of survival to grasp onto what's real and what's living. And it's really humbling. And yeah, you don't just go out to nature to smell some fresh air. It becomes your survival.
Yeah, and it sounds like the magic of the natural spaces that you spent your childhood in amidst all of this chaos and turmoil has stayed with you.
Mm.
All of those memories mean so much more because of everything that it was surrounded by.
Yeah, it's my foundation. We kind of live in it. It's not something we go to.
Yeah.
It's part of us. And our livelihood is, uh, that of the land and the water. But we're dependent on it. And that's why you see these wars are so land-based, because we still very much live in that.
And you mentioned that your father's dairy farm was also part of that experience as well.
Yes. And it played a really big role in my life, just living in he had a dairy and a farm. So like the dairy farm was our source of nourishment. So we had
Mm.
fresh milk and cheese, and it gave us like the aptitude of correlation, caring for the cows. We've also always had sheeps and goats, and so it's no easy task to kind of be a farmer. And I remember like wearing the jasma, the wellies, as a child to go milk the cows, and the cow would kick and toss you to the side, and I'd be in a heap of cow dung. And I always laugh because some smells never leave me, and till today I really feel so grounded at like the smell of manure. So even in a pile of compost or manure, it just like kind of grounds me on some molecular level. I feel really, really good in the smell. Yeah, that's never left. So in between the dairy farm chores, I was also the water girl on the farm. So we are like watering the gardens with the workers as children, and also my chore was to walk to the spring with big gallons to fill up the drinking water. So as I said, like the land was our foundation, and for generations it wasn't our foundation because of the war. It was our livelihood. It's where we come from. And now during the war, it was also feeding us when the supply chains were collapsing and when existence was futile. So we relied on the land, on the animals, on each other, and living on the land, we had and still have orchards of apples and cherries and pears and plums and pomegranates and walnuts and chestnuts and pine nuts. And we farm a variety of beans and tomatoes and potatoes and cucumbers and peppers and radishes and carrots and eggplants and zucchinis. Like what you could plant, we could grow in our elevation. Pumpkins and even the loofah. So you had your own sponge that you would grow on your terrace, and that was our summers. And then autumn, for everyone here in Lebanon, it's about the season of preparing the moune and food preservation, and it's a reminder of our reliance on our land to nourish us through a cold winter, and also like it's a really tending process of slowing down and a labor of you know processing that food to withstand you. And so we still live this way, and we're raised on moune, on the seasonal produce. And I think it's really formed me in the sense that my food doesn't come wrapped in plastic, my produce doesn't come wrapped in plastic, and it doesn't come imported from other countries. And when I bite into it, I taste the land, I taste what came before it, I taste my sweat in it, and I taste the flavors of the variety of the produce. So you're connected. And now I see, biomaterial looks at this as, oh, what's my waste, material flow into a product. And it's like, okay, what have I made with all of this produce before it can come and become a biomaterial? Because for me, if I'm just going to straight away use it as a biomaterial, I've seen different pathways of how it can feed us first. And also, when I look at how I'm living on my farm now, and from the agroecology and also the biomaterial, I'm really motivated by my dad, because you mirror your parents, and he really taught me in a tough way. Yeah, it was tough love, but I watched him also do the hard work, and he would work through the nights, through the war, after the war, until today. So he prepares the harvest, he sorts everything, prepares it for packaging, distribution, and then like a little child so happy with the harvest finds the big tomato and the big potato, and just like compares how each season the varieties are changing based on the climate, based on the ways of care. And I really have these really, I think, cherished memories of watching my father go through his care on the land. And I feel a lot like him today, tending to the land. And I'm really proud because I'm like a fourth generational farmer. And I'm taking, this rooted pace from my ancestors and the love and the survival on the land, but I'm pushing it forward in a more future focused material form as well. So I'm still doing that, but it's like pushing it to the next level. I feel a lot like walking the path of my father today and my forefathers. So I'm a fourth generational farmer, and it's very rooted in my ancestors and love and survival. And it's taught me a lot of resilience and interdependence. And for me, it was really like that seed for self-sufficiency because I saw it in action. I didn't read it somewhere or watch it, on a YouTube video. It was, this is how and where we come from. And yeah, it really has formed me. And I was really reflecting on how this level of hard work and determinants from the farm life is also helping me in the biomaterial way, because a lot of what we're doing is to create these forward futures, and that having this background of living on the land, with the land, tending, really helps you not give up because it's a long process and you got to put the sweat in. I think with biomaterials, you can see your limits and where you can push, and you don't get to tell the biomaterial what you want. It's part of a process of co-creation with it too.
Yeah, that's such a nice way to think about biomaterials. That they really reveal to you their limitations if you actually pay attention to what you're working with. And that it's not necessarily like a design fault or failure. Like there's, I feel like often we can be quite critical of biomaterials because they can't do what plastic can, but actually no, that's a design benefit. That's not a design flaw. Like we should with something with this impermanence. Um, I wonder, because the way you described your sort of childhood and early years is so grounded in place, in this one particular place. I wonder what was your experience like when you left that very specific and um rich environment and went out to study around the world, because you studied in Hawaii and also China.
Yes. So before I went to Hawaii, when I was 9, my mother had taken us to the US right after the Civil War had ended. And it was, probably what harmed me the most, because when I went to the US, I had to live in a totally different environment, and I wasn't allowed to speak French or Arabic. And I had to go to these English as second language courses after I had failed the first year of the third grade. I had to repeat it because I didn't have strong enough English. And I remember that I'd keep having to spell words in English and I'd spell them in French. And then I'd have to do these spelling bees. And as soon as I finally passed a spelling bee and I hadn't spelt something in French finally, it felt like I had been colonized. My language had been stripped out of me. I wasn't allowed to speak it. And there was a block as a 9-year-old girl, that there's just a wall between your inner self and how you communicate with the world. So I had to repeat the third grade as my English wasn't strong enough, and take English as a second language. And I remember sitting in front of those ESL computer programs, having to spell words without spelling them the French way. And when I finally had spelt the whole program, correctly without spelling in French, I felt this really overpowering sense of like what today I've processed as colonization, but it was really like a stripping of my language and a separation of my inner self to who and how I communicate. And it's really affected me till today. So I have quite weak Arabic and French, because there was something so disruptive of taking a child from a land as rich as what we were living in, even though it was war and even though it was a hard life. I'm not going to romanticize it at all, but just like uprooting and placing my mother is American, so she speaks English, so I did know some English, but just stripping this language away was something that really always affected my life. And so how this compared to my experience when I did leave Lebanon by choice and tried to travel was that I didn't go to university. And I tried, but I always had a different way of communicating. And so it was difficult for me to want to sit still in four-walled rooms. I wanted to learn in other ways. So when I did move to Hawaii and learn Chinese, it was because I had done a quick course of Mandarin and then kind of merged that class and brought them into my office where I was working at night because the office wasn't being used at night. And I brought together business owners from around Hawaii that were working in China and did that. So I think it's all really quite interlinked of how it just pushed me on the sidelines of having to leave Lebanon. And like my very, very personal experience in Hawaii was kind of between a mirror and a very stark contrast. So I saw indigenous and local communities that were practicing the stewardship that is like rooted in aloha aina. So that's like the love of the land. And it was embodied, it was collective, it was spiritual. And I felt that we are like rooted and sharing this between our region and Hawaii. But I remember being in a farmer's market in Hawaii and just crying, going, oh, what is this farmer's market? You know, the prices were so high, it was so not accessible. And it was farm produce that I was raised off of. Like, why is that not accessible? And so I felt that there was like this and the general way of life that I experienced in Hawaii was masked with this appearance of paradise, which it very much is, but it's also masking a deep disconnection with white settler culture. And so it brings us back to, you know, what is environmental justice. So regeneration isn't just about ecology. It's about sovereignty. And land and people thrive where the original stewards are not displaced, erased, and colonized. So you see this also in the recent fires in Lahaina, where in Maui, where the kind of like colonization has fractured the bond between the people and the place, where they unwilded the land and, you know, built golf courses and hotels. So this was really quite apparent for me there. And Hawaii also was really a pivotal moment where it was the first time I had protest for Palestine. It was in Hawaii. So there was like this sharp connection between Hawaii's sovereignty movement of, you know, how they want their independence, and the colonization of our region. So it's, you know, when I say like dropping colonization every left, right, and center, it's like either colonization by land or by leadership. And you look at the Arab leaders around the region, and You'll say, oh, they're free, they have their country, but they've totally, been bought and sold. And we are seeing this now in the future of Lebanon and Syria, and in particular in Palestine. So I was really sensitive to that there. And ultimately, at 23, I was purchasing a plot of land after working really hard and building a home on it across from the ocean. And I felt like after I had built it, I had carved this future footing of myself onto someone else's land and culture, and it didn't sit well with me. And then I had gone to China, and I got to China, and I had quite a panic, radical realization that I need to actually just be back home in Lebanon. So I always kind of came back to Lebanon with this quote in my head that I traded paradise for chaos to find peace. And I feel like finally here at Terrapods, I've grew this peace. And so I woke up in a tent made of goat hair to a sunrise over beehives. And, even in the mornings, like at 4:41 in the morning, I'm to the rhythm of the bees where they come humming and buzzing. And it's a real solace to just know that I was able to take control of my life somehow and root myself back amongst all that chaos. And there's not peace around me, but there's a lot of rage in me. But maybe I can create these little pockets of peace where I'm at and how I'm living.
Could you talk a little bit more about Terrapods and kind of introduce that project for people who are listening who haven't heard about Terrapods before?
Yeah, it's my biggest pleasure. So in 2015, I founded the NGO Recycle Lebanon, which the program Terrapods falls under. And Recycle Lebanon wasn't for me about recycling garbage, right? It was about how do you recycle the system and design out waste. And Terrapods was that final last piece of it. But as life has it, you can't just start with your final outcome. You have to start step by step. So through Recycle Lebanon, we opened the Eco Souk, which is the zero waste market, and a Regenerate Hub digital platform to help you connect who's doing what, where, what, in the resources. And finally, I've been able to open Terrapods in 2023 after 10 years of trying to find a land and trying to make it happen. So Terrapods is it's a living lab, it's an arts residency, and it's an agroecology farm. It's cultivating biofabrication and creative ecology and regenerative alternatives. And those are a lot of buzzwords in one sentence that I'm proud to say is a living model in action. So it fosters innovation. It is all about research and development. It's community-driven solutions. And we're kind of building a way to reconnect the ecosystems with economies and creative expression. So how can you merge STEAM-led innovations and not just look at something in a very linear, one-size-fits-all package? So all of that to say, like, what do we actually do at Terrapods? And we're farming on terraces, and we've grown a food forest garden. We have built a really lovely small space out of earth and stones from the land, using just sand and straw and bamboo reeds to create a structure that really houses all of this transformational and really inspiring land-based space. So there's a tiny low-tech lab a kitchen that is open underneath a walnut tree. And it's like a safe haven to come and create and imagine and push the boundaries. So for me, it's about how do we create this, not just a living lab, but like a field test. So as I said, I couldn't really be inside four walls. You see me now, I'm behind a wall. I'm behind a stone cave, an ancient abo that my great grandfather built, and it has three walls. So it's completely open if I just do a little shift and show
Oh,
Oh
the
wow.
Terrapods.
whoa.
So I really try to stay within at least the three wall boundary. Um, and inside the abo, we're growing a grow room, and the other side is a studio atelier space for artists. And where I am here, it's like a little diwan area where we have some nice workshop or lounge time space. And you can keep going down into the different terraces. We don't own all the terraces, it's a shared land between other owners. And you get to a beautiful old forest, and it's so rich and has like this ecosystem that is just biodiverse. At every turn it changes, and I am really lucky to be able to offer the space um, for students and communities and professors, and you know, to come and do arts residencies or biomaterial residencies, to stay for, you know, a week and learn the depths of a foundational course on biomaterials in a lab that is sterile but inside a forest garden. And it's a way that I can learn, and it's a way that I hope that I can open up a breathing space for others to learn in this kind of environment where you're really connected to your materials. So you can go into the terraces and forage your materials and see how it's grown, and be part of planting the seeds and growing that, and using that material then to transform it into a biomaterial, and having the whole process in front of you to co-create. And so it's not just about like watching it on a presentation or in a lab, you know, in a white building in the city. It's so rooted in living. And up above us, the terrace above where I am now, it's the residency tents. So we got Bedouin tents that are made from goat hair, and they are really marvelous because when it rains, the goat hair combines together, and the oils of the goat hair trap the water, so it's naturally waterproof. And it just reminds you that the biomaterial isn't only something that is from the future, but it's very much rooted in our ancestral practices. We're just using a trendy word to describe how we used to co-create with nature from the start.
So Terrapods is the dream.
Yeah, we're most looking forward to you joining, but you know, you got to live in nature. It's wild. Um we've got all the environments that are going to push you out of your boundaries.
Yeah, I can't wait to rewild myself.
Yeah, it's like you have to like rewild yourself in order to rewild your practice. Like it can't be separate.
And it's really been interesting because, you know, we're having Lebanese students come up, and some are interested and used to camping, and others are just going, how are we going to sleep the first night? And that first night is really difficult. But by the second night, they're champions. They're like, we're campers. We can do this. We're having our best sleeps. And it's because their nervous system is completely, you know, like reconnecting here on the land. I mean, listen, when you wake up with the bees humming at 4:40 in the morning, you can be annoyed until you go back to sleep the next night and you realize that the air you're breathing when you're sleeping has totally shifted how the quality of your sleep is. So we can always do better. We can get better mattresses and, you know, make the accommodations even more comfortable. But if you stay here long enough, you kind of need a lot less.
Yeah, it really sounds like a like there's something so beautiful about um getting to take people out of their comfort zones, sort of rewild them in this setting, and then like really quickly see just the human benefit to people.
Hmm.
Like especially when you're talking about like these kids who, yeah, after day two, they fully get it and they're like, oh, I feel different. Like I feel different, I'm thinking different, I'm living
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah. We really laugh though, because I mean, I'm quite radical. And so it's like if you can bring the least amount of plastic packaging, but then they want to bring all their snacks. And so here we're providing the food and everything is home cooked, or, you know, just not the snacks. So the snacks are always coming in packaging. And the last cohort wanted marshmallows. I said, hey, now we can make our own marshmallows. No, we just got to find the mallow plant here in Lebanon. So we have a new challenge now. And it's also about having these, fireside conversations over the bonfire and a jam session, and just going, what is it that we're putting in our body? What is this toothpaste and the shampoo? And just seeing what everyone is bringing with them versus the the systemic shift that they're like, oh, okay, so we can be making that from the land. And that's really something that we're looking forward to kind of helping share through plant medicine, and creating these alternatives that help them see it's really accessible and possible. It doesn't need to be radical, right? I'm saying radical because that's what it's made to look like, but it's kind of not. It should be the norm.
Yeah, so by the time we get there, there will be marshmallows.
Challenge accepted.
Okay.
Need to know
Yeah.
when you're coming.
Okay. Okay. We'll discuss. We'll
We're not
discuss.
getting on that plane until the marshmallows are ready.
But I think that something that's so wonderful about Terrapods and the foundation of it, you were talking a lot about the legacy of colonialism around the world and its effect on you and your experiences, but Terrapods again rooted in these ancestral practices as an antidote to that and as a foundation upon which you can build research practices and future materials and social connection and social impact is wonderful.
We've had a lot of fun, it's a learning experience for them as much as it is for me. And we've been looking a lot at kombucha and growing this in the grow room into sheets of leather, and looking at what are the alternatives of growing kombucha on tea. And Alve Lagerkantz, the biomaterial designer in residency here, leading all of the workshops this summer, and who made this lab possible. He's like, okay, so what can we do with olive leaves? Can we grow kombucha on olive leaves? Because we have this as a resource in Lebanon instead of using imported black tea. And so, you have to look at like how extreme can we go, because even kombucha is not native. It's not a culture that's growing here as a bacteria in Lebanon. So it's a culture that we've gotten and we're creating from. So what's really inspiring me in the future is how can we create a biomaterial library of cultures and bacterias and everything that's just growing here in Lebanon. And we're
Mhm.
on that journey, starting with what's accessible and what we have now. We've been playing a lot with mycelium, and when I say mycelium and playing, I mean mycelium and playing, right? Very low tech. We're working in petri dishes, we're making molds. We're not yet at the stage where we have a big facility and we can do the mycelium leather for the fashion industry, but we're starting, and that's really like the advice I have, is to just start, even if it's in a petri dish, and then you take that and create a mold from it, and you don't have a you know a entire facility made for it. with biomaterials, you can just start. It's following a recipe. And so that has really been fun. And also this summer we've been exploring alginates. So we are using spirulina that we did get from a lab, but we're also trying to see, you know, what can we do with the algae that's growing in the ponds inside of the on the land from the gardens that we're using. So you know, to irrigate all of our gardens. So it's it's a start, and for me, I really want to see where we can push that further. And with each summer and each cohort, you know, we're really looking at how we can make this more possible during the winter, because we close the gardens in the summer of in the autumn, right? So it snows. We're 1,600 meters in elevation. So there's not much we can do under the snow, but our future plans now are looking at how we can work across all the seasons and, you know, expand the different varieties of materials and instructors. So there's a really worldwide web of biomaterial experts that we invite to come and join this journey with us. And really hoping that also we can create this community in Lebanon of trainers that have gone through a program here and can also become experts in this field.
So can you talk about how your kind of international partnerships tie into that with the different labs and research facilities around the world?
Yeah. So yesterday we were visited by Bonnie from the Plastic Ocean Project in North Carolina. And she heard my podcast on Nate Hagen's Great Simplification and contacted me. And, you know, we had such a beautiful connection, and she brought us a microscope. So as of yesterday, we finally have a microscope. We're that low tech. And it's, for me, you know, looking at these partnerships that are beyond the bureaucracy contracts, the bureaucratic contracts, but like that real human connection of how my story and your story are shared, and kind of how we want to collaborate and move things together. So I really find these partnerships can be really formalized within different labs and institutions, research centers, and academia, but just as equally between kind of kindred spirits and people that you touch between airwaves.
What's your what would you say your long-term vision is for Terrapods with this kind of like broad network of people all over the world?
So I think without networks, we wouldn't have been where we are today. So even back in 2017, we had been part of a biochemistry network in Italy, and went to the universities and, you know, tried to show, oh, what can you do from an apple leather? You know, it was way back then where it was just trying to find support from these international communities to help us. And so I feel like I'm very anchored in realizing the need for international and local support, and that it's a place for like creative ecology and play in these experimentations and explorations through education, but also equally in policy influence and movement building. So it's like linking the grassroots efforts to the systemic change. So I'm not trying to like steer away from the responsibility of how much can we push in innovation to make these part of policy. And now when I say that in Lebanon, it's just a laughing joke because we don't have a policy that can, you know, as I say, like meet its maker. Everything is so political that it takes a really long time. So come back to the ground, as to say. And currently, material design that's being explored in local universities, I see it as limited in a linear mold. They're not really tackling biomaterial. We've gone to the universities this summer with Holly Adams and Alve Lagerkrantz, the team that's been helping us set up this year. And, we ask the question, what is biomaterial? And people don't know. And so we start with showing them the physical material. And this for me is definitely the next step of institutionalizing it, in a sense that making it so accessible that you're exploring with a living material within institutions inside that context, but you're adapting it to solutions that are quite decentralized. And I think that's a way to merge the climate resilient futures that we're working on, but demonstrating how place-based and these collaborations with institutions can help create like a meaningful alternative to dependency and collapse that were kind of married in between. So I'd really like to expand this and to also create a membership. So it's a network that we've started this year. It's the Terrapods Guild. So we're all like part of this little guild and an ecosystem. And it's a hub for circularity membership network. So where I'd like to see that grow to is these satellite nodes across Lebanon and the region that are supporting the members in prototyping with training. So we can also have trainings of trainers, and we can have more local biomaterial experts, and also really supporting participants that have come and helping them to launch their own local projects and these micro enterprises that are rooted in the craft of biomaterial and ecology and care, and not just looking at, how can I just use this material, but how can I work together with the material that it can create something really that will change our lives. And for me, it's really kind of giving these toolkits to the participants that come and helping them see how they can make this happen on their own. And we obviously do have really big challenges. So I mean, this dream you said for 5 years, it's really not that big of a dream, but in our region, in our country, that is quite a big dream, because scaling any of this is just constantly met with instability. We were really looking forward for Akir to come and join us as an artist in residency this year, and then we had a meteor shower of Iran striking Israel that was just coming through our lands. We were watching these red flames flying across, going, all right, well, maybe the summer season's going to end a little bit shorter this year. And how are we going to know how to prepare for, autumn and winter? Like, where are we going to be politically? Everything is so unstable. And so I think I like to think that I dream and plan for the next 100 years, but I keep my feet on the ground and I look at like what's the next tangible step of making it possible, knowing that at any moment everything is going to be erupting, and what can be made possible and self-sufficient in the now.
Yeah, and listening to the podcast that you're on before with Nate Higgins, um, particularly about self-sufficiency. You spoke about how you've operated Recycle Lebanon through the revolution in 2019 and the role that you played in politically turbulent climates already. Like, do you think that experience will carry through to Terrapods and the work that you're doing now, and is helpful in developing this dream in the next 5 to 10 years in the future?
It's definitely helpful because the revolution was just a sabotage. And so here in Terrapods, I don't have these kind of forms of sabotage that the government or the revolution or the different factions of the different revolution can come and intertwine in our movement. So the revolution was really something that we had all hoped was a real revolution, but it broke a lot of our hearts because I think I'm particularly still recovering from it, just knowing that we were fighting for something that we really dreamt so much of, but it's not in our hands. There's so much corruption and interference. So I feel like I don't want to say the word control because I'm not in control of anything, but at least I'm so far away here in the village and isolated, but in a space of like collective self-sufficiency that we're left away to have our freedom to do what we need to do. And I always look at this word freedom in Lebanon since I was a kid. We are so free here in that sense that we can be left to our own to create these systems. It's just when you want to implement it through policy in large scale, then you're met with a lot of blockades, but that you're going to have across Europe and in the West. So we really do have a lot of room and a much more spectrum of freedom, and in my point of view, compared to the West, because we don't have so much red tape to navigate through. And so I really look at Lebanon as, this blueprint of a case study. If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. It's so hard to get anything done here. It's so unstable. And so if it got done here, whoever's watching today, just not to minimize your problems or anything, but you could have bombs flying over your head and everyone from the international community of experts wanting to come support you have to cancel their flights. So you get things done here. And it's hard to get things done here too, right? It's not easy. So when Alve came, he's like, there's no Amazon? I said, no, Amazon's banned here. We can't have Amazon. He goes, how are we going to get certain materials? And well, I don't have a car. I'm not driving. And so we take a taxi and we just have to go and find different labs and different suppliers and knock on doors and take the wrong turn and find the right way without any road signs and without any proper destination. Like, you don't know where you're going, how you're finding it, but somehow you know the right person to reach and get exactly what you're looking for, and it's met with like open arms and open warmth and hospitality, and it's something Amazon doesn't give you. So we really are looking to do a research study at the end of the season to show what are the challenges of creating a low-tech biolab in a forest garden in Biskinta in this region, and what does that mean? What are the challenges that come with it? How can we push it forward? What is the support and the lessons learned? Because we're not here to be in silos. We're really looking, that a result of these biomaterial residencies not only have an exploration behind it within the material itself, but what are the art residencies combination with the biomaterial, and some exhibits that can be really giving a look at the co-creation, and not necessarily exhibits inside these four walls as a limitation only, but really looking at how can this really speak to the pushing of boundaries through the creative lens. So it's really an important element for us to have the art residencies to play a really large part in the biomaterial design, beyond technology and beyond policy, and beyond producing just a work. So I feel like combining the arts residencies in what is Terrapods kind of as its base core is offering these like diverse voices for people to co-create, to reflect, and also to kind of enter into this very slow living system as collaborators within the non-human world. And art helps you to kind of explore this dialogue of not just how we live, but why are we inviting these new narratives and forms, and what are these futures that emerge from the ground up. So it's just looking at it from being in the process with the land and the materials and each other, and like these ecosystems of being, to invite artists to shift like from a studio to a soil. And what does that mean? What does that rhythm look like as vital agents of this culture change that is maybe able to sense and interpret and reshape the world around us and within us?
I'm really interested, like material grounding to art making. So I feel like what I hear a lot in the art world, but also the biodesign world, is this need for new narratives. But it's often completely decoupled from making that new narrative through action and through process. And I think that like you end up in a very different uh, narrative or future, or even just like a sort of idea making, if you are like concurrently like building something at the same time versus sitting
Mm.
often quite siloed and just trying to, you know, intangibly imagine what the future might be. So I think it's really nice that you're bringing in these like different groups of people who are trying to create these new narratives, and saying no, it's going to be done like with your hands in the soil. Like that's the kind of narrative that needs to emerge.
With your hands in the soil and with the glue as a material that's not harmful to that soil, you know. So I think it's really interesting in the art world of, okay, well, we can make this a representation, but what did you use in your representation? How can we come back to a material through your art that is also crafted from materials around you? And I'm not talking about upcycling, you know, there's no upcycling here. There's no recycling, upcycling. I'm not talking about that. It's about really reconnecting with that material that is other than you and other than a synthetic process. It's just coming back to the the root.
Wow. I think every part of your process is so deeply felt, and every angle is like so deeply considered. How what advice would you give to someone else that wants to drive system change and create an initiative that is as holistic as what you've been doing?
Yeah. So I see a new generation that are looking for a way through this dystopic future, and I really sympathize, right? There's a lot of pressure to catch up and to make it quick. And I equally, maybe as a projection because I had a very hard life, revert back to the old notion of, you know, hard work. And so without this hard work, adding these baskets of skill sets to CVs can lead to this kind of opportunities that are unfulfilled when the going gets tough. And so my advice is keep going. Be prepared to unlearn. Get uncomfortable and humble yourself. Roll up your sleeves. Do that sweaty work. And it's like cultivating a garden. So it's a labor's journey of love. And look at the broken systems and create the alternatives that shift and shape a future that is not like just livable, but it's rooted in these values. So if you're just creating something to create something, but it's not rooted in that authentic value, you've missed it. Keep going.
Okay, so thank you for sharing your journey, and we have one more question for you, which is, to whom
Or to what?
would you like to dedicate this conversation to?
I dedicate this to my brother, Eli. I call him Kaoud. His name is Kehdy Ilyes Kehdy, and he transformed. And before he transformed, he helped me to get this land to make my project. And I dedicate all of what I'm doing to him. And I feel him with me in every way. And it's so selfish still to feel that way because, you know, when he was living, he was giving so much love and putting himself aside to help everyone around him. And so knowing he'd probably want to be doing his own thing too in the afterlife, I'm still feeling and thinking that he's here with me and helping me in every way. But it's his like abundant spirit of love and giving. So as to say, you know, this is for you, Khaye. Thank you.